Hi everybody, welcome to For the Culture. I'm your host Deepak Batty, and today I have a guest that I'm very excited to actually interview. His name is Graham S. White, and Graham is actually an artist who I found sifting through the Explore feature on Instagram. So the Explore feature actually turned into something productive for me. Anyway, Graham is an artist that I stumbled upon who had a very unique sense of style to his work. It's a very particular kind of work that he does. He does like these very clean but very detailed drawings, dot drawings, which when I first showed my girlfriend Erica the drawings, she was like, "Whoa, this looks great. I want this tattooed on my body." And so he's very meticulous with the work that he does, and he posts every single day. He does a drawing every single day. And I went to his house. I saw the drawings, obviously, where we got the picture done, and it looks so good. They're big pictures too, and they take up a good chunk of an 8x5x11 paper. But anyway, I digress. So thank you for coming on to the show, Graham. I'm really happy to have you.
No worries. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, how you been?
Living life, just kind of going through the motions, but
right,
still focused on just creating every single day. So,
yeah, for sure. Okay, so before we get into everything, I wanted to ask you, so how would you describe your art that you do, and where did that all start from? Like, how did it evolve to the style that you're at now?
Okay, so sort of I would describe my artwork as largely focused on dot work. So big focus on pointillism and stippling.
For the people that don't know what that is, sorry to interrupt, but what is dot work?
Okay, so dot work is essentially building an image with very small dots. So you're using a pen to make one tiny little dot mark and then expanding that to create different compositions. So you're creating different kinds of shading, as well as kind of playing around with lines. So like if you have a really thick line and then a really thin line, and then you can actually thin that out even more by using dots to kind of bring that all together.
Perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like pointillism is sort of one of those things that I find very challenging to really get depth and make it really, really interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm sure most people know what pointillism is. I would hope so, at least. It's been around for a long, long time.
Yeah. I mean, you have a history, art history.
Yeah.
Past, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for those that don't know what pointillism is, can you give a brief sort of explanation on that?
Yeah. So in terms of like art history, pointillism has been this thing where essentially you're doing the same thing that I'm doing, just usually with color. So like Georges Seurat is a really good kind of painter to look into for pointillism. Like Sunday à la Grande Jette. I can't remember what year that is. I should be able to remember, but but like massive paintings done with incredibly tiny dots that kind of create this beautiful piece, right? It's all about creating something without having to paint all the little details. Whereas what I'm doing is using that pointillism in pretty much exclusively in black work.
Okay.
So just black and white. There's no gray tones. I've been doing a little bit of watercolor, but I do really try to focus on, keeping it dark.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you evolve into doing that style of work without any gray tones and just very specific pointillism and watercolor work?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of started just because it was what I had available, right? I wasn't super big into painting. I was always able to kind of give it a go, but it was never something that really stuck with me.
Right.
Whereas drawing has been something I've been doing my whole life. Started out, as any kid does, just messing around, and then you kind of work your way up, and did a lot of charcoal work, which is its own kind of difficulty with shading and creating depth, because and you get very, very messy hands.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of that. I like keeping things a little bit cleaner. So
Yeah.
as a result, the natural progression was moving into doing just ink and working on just pen drawings, which kind of just began with just playing around with it and evolved into something that I said, oh, I'll do this every single day. I'll get better at it every single day.
Yeah, and you said that you started doing that every single day right around March of this year, which is 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And was there a specific thing that happened that caused you to want to start uploading every single day? Was there anything that sort of clicked in your head that made you want to do that?
It kind of started out as a bit of a challenge to myself. I was looking at it from the perspective of, look, if I do something, like I want to set myself a goal to accomplish, how can I go about accomplishing that goal? And what seemed logical at the time, because I was almost doing it already, I said, okay, I'll do a drawing every single day. I'll post it every day. Even if I hate the drawing, I'll try to post it. You know, like just not giving myself any way to back out of it. Right?
Yeah.
There's no option to quit. And then it just has continued, and I haven't really looked back. It's been a really fun experience. It's
Yeah.
really challenging, but at the same time, I look back to March and I go, wow, I've been improving. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and that's the point, right? Like
Yeah.
you do force yourself to improve, which is, the best thing you could ask for.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. What sort of improvements have you seen since you started?
One of the things I've really noticed is that I've been getting a lot more deliberate with my pointillism. So kind of in the beginning, it was very haphazard. It was, oh, well, this little section needs to be shaded, sort of. So put a few dots there. And it's very much evolved into something where it's like, well, I can really play around with lights and darks. And I can really just bring out the dark as possible and kind of spread it out. It's like, you can do a lot of fun stuff with that. Like animal noises, or noses, sorry, not noises. That'd be impressive if you could draw that. But
That'll be for November.
yeah. But like a dog's nose is a really interesting thing to draw, especially with dot work, because it is so dark in points and you can really bring out the shiny like wetness of it by using dot work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You could probably also do it with paint pretty easily. It's a little bit different, but
Yeah.
with dot work, I find it to be both challenging and meditative and quite a bit of fun. So
Wow. And that's the beauty of art.
Right.
I was saying to Cameron Kipp, the guy that I had on my previous episode, that it's really good thing for the psyche to do something like that. Art on a general term on a daily basis. It lets out a lot of whether it be very something small or very something large. It allows at least for me, and from the sounds of it for you and lots of other people, for your psyche to just sort of decompress. It's almost like getting a full body massage, but to your brain.
Definitely.
So you started this in March. Where do you see it going? When do you see an endpoint for all this daily uploads that you're doing?
Not really, no. There's definitely going to be points in my life where it'll be not possible to.
Yeah.
And I've run into some of those things already where it's looking like, oh, I'm not going to have time to be able to do this. It's going to kind of screw up the whole system that I'm trying to get going.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I would do multiple drawings a day and just basically stock up.
Yeah.
Have as much in the stores that I could, and then just put those out anyway, even if I couldn't necessarily finish a drawing that day. Because for some things, you just can't pull yourself away for enough time to finish a drawing.
Yeah.
So then when you have, a weekend or you've got a few hours to spare, you just put out as many as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And how long does it take for you to do a single drawing, you find?
Definitely depends on the size. If I'm doing something small, it might take me a couple hours, but something larger, so if you're looking at like 8.5 by 11, around that sizing, filling out that space, good 4.5 hours easily.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Cool. So, and where do you see like a place of progression for your dot art to go?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Like I just want to keep doing bigger and better pieces.
Yeah.
I want to eventually expand and start putting some of that artwork on people's bodies.
Yeah, tattoo. Yeah, you eventually, you told me earlier that you wanted to get into tattooing, right?
Oh, yeah. I see that as a very logical progression.
I think so.
This. Yeah, and plus, my whole goal with this is to constantly be improving, and that's something that I see in the tattoo industry, where like an artist that stagnates doesn't stay an artist very long. Right?
No, you're exactly right. And I like that you're aware of that. You're actually a very self-aware artist, though. I remember you were saying to me when we were getting our photos done, how you always actually critique all the work that you do. At the end of it, you come up with a list of the things that you like, the things that you don't like, and what you can improve on, and the things you don't like, which is cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's super helpful, too, for just constantly improving. I think that without doing that, I'd have a very hard time looking at my art and going, okay, this is good enough to post. Just because I wouldn't be able to look at it and go, oh, I can do this part better. And that means that if I post this, then tomorrow I can do all those things better.
Yeah.
And you can see how much better it's getting. So
yeah. And I know you've said that, like, even if you don't like the work necessarily, you will still have to post it.
Yeah.
Or you will post it. So, but has there ever been a time where you're just like, you absolutely don't like a piece that you just straight up don't post whatsoever?
There's been a few.
Yeah.
They're usually ones that I just go, it's not doing it right.
Right.
They're either too simplistic, or it's clear that I didn't put the right kind of effort into it, And then I'll keep the drawing, I'll critique the heck out of it, and then I'll do a new one to post, because sometimes you just go, wow, that's not good enough to be anywhere.
Yeah, that's fair. And you know what, though, that's a good thing that you're able to do that too, because it's not just that you post every single thing that you have. You have to hold up a reputation, and you also have to hold up a integrity to the work that you have on your page, right? That's what you're known for, and you want to make sure that the work that you have is good, holds a quality up. And the cool thing about you being an artist that wants to eventually get into tattooing is that you have a signature style already, which I think works in a contemporary sort of field that we're in right now. I think your art works extremely well. And and I think that for you, you'll be well known for this. People will be able to come to you and ask for your types of work specifically. People will be able to come from like all parts of the world just to get your style of drawing, because I personally have never seen anybody do the style of work that you do, because it's not just dot drawing, though. What I've seen you do is that you combine different things. You come up with things off your imagination. And you were saying to me that the inspiration that you have is largely from puns.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of, there's that little bit of humor that I try to put into things. It doesn't come out in everything, but for the most part, that's what I'm going for. I like things that are a little bit weird, a little bit off. Some of the drawings that I did that I like the most are the ones that make me personally gag a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah, just because they have that emotional gesture of just that horrible feeling.
It makes you writhe a little bit.
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing when art can do that to you. I find that's a really fun emotion to try to bring out.
I agree for sure. Yeah. So that's really cool. I could see if you start to do tattoos, when you start to do tattoos, a lot of metalheads will come up to you and be like, hey, I want your pieces.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I could certainly see that. By the way, my girlfriend was telling me that she'd be definitely up first in line to get tattoos done. So you already have
that's
a client.
always good to hear.
You already have a client. Yeah. And have you explored or at least looked into potentially getting prints done of your work?
Yes. I'm in the process of getting some of that prepared. For me right now, it's going through all the drawings and kind of picking out the ones that I think are the best ones, which is a hard process, because every time I look at an older drawing, I go, oh, well, there's that thing that I critiqued already that I'm like, it's not very good there, so let's try to improve that. So
right, it's
kind of a constant battle of kind of being able to go, okay, it was good, it's not as good as I want it to be, but it's good enough.
Right.
And that's a very hard thing for me.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. And the thing is that you've built up this critique not just because you're just very harsh on yourself, but you've earned yourself an art history degree.
Yeah.
So you can objectively see what makes a piece good. So
Well, I hope it's objective, but
well, I mean, you've told me before though that you've seen work that people do and you can objectively say that it's bad art, right?
yes.
So, but you've earned yourself that right to be able to distinguish that.
I think to a degree, I mean, I think everyone sort of has the right to subjectively look at it.
Subjectively,
You
yeah.
know, getting into the objectivity of the whole thing, it's really challenging, right? Because at the end of the day, like someone can look at a beautiful landscape painting and go, it's horrible because it's a landscape painting, or, you know, because the colors aren't quite right. You know, there's
Right.
so much subjectivity that goes into it, and I don't think I'm immune from that. Certainly when I look at art and I go, wow, that's... Whew, I don't know if that should be hanging up there. It's one of those things that it's personal, and I can try to analyze it from a technical standpoint, or even from a critical standpoint of going, well, that's bad for these reasons. But then again, someone out there is probably going to be able to look at that and go, I kind of like that.
Right.
You know?
Right. And just because I'm curious, where did you go get your degree, by the way?
So I studied my degree down at SFU in Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which very interesting program for sure. I think because I started out in just fine arts, just doing visual art, and moved into SFU's version of art history, which doesn't share that name, and they kept changing it on me throughout the program, which was a lot of fun. But I ended up learning a lot of things that I thought I'd never learn. In particular, just from doing fine art.
Right.
You know, I did a lot more math and science than I had ever previously done.
Really?
Yeah, just
why?
I was interested in it. Like,
okay.
Things like exploring, you know, the golden ratio, like, and trying to understand it from that standpoint. And what you end up doing is a lot of math to figure it out. And for someone who kind of went, oh, well, I'm not very good at math, I don't understand science, I'll just skip all that, and kind of diving back into that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, you know what? Math and science are actually very intertwined with music.
Oh, yeah.
You know, back a long time ago, you know, in Greece, ancient Greece, they used to use music as a way of doing math because when notes were, you know, in a proper ratio with each other, you know, like 1/2 or 4/16 or whatever, they would actually create a note that was harmonious, but when it was out, when that ratio was out, then it'd be dissonant. So like it's actually really cohesive together.
Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a neat thing when you really look into it. Like some of the greatest artists that have ever existed, you look at their artwork and there's so much math involved.
Yeah.
You know, you look at Da Vinci's work in just general, and it is all math. It's all engineering, and it's kind of challenging because at that time frame an artist was more of a craftsman, so it was a little bit more in the science realm than it was in the creative realm, but it was still pretty interesting to look at.
Yeah, it's sort of weird though that like in today's age we have like this divide, right?
Yeah.
We have this divide between science and the arts, whereas back then it was all more cohesive together, which is kind of, I think, you know, the beauty about, say, Apple's work was that Steve Jobs was hugely into technology, but also at the same time hugely into arts. And he looked at engineering the same way that he looked at art. And that's what allowed them to sort of create the products that they created and innovate the way that they did. And so that he sort of brought it back to that same sort of way.
Yeah.
Now, this is going beyond just the way that people feel about Apple on a general. I'm just saying that, like, that's just sort of what their philosophy was. So, but it's just, you know, when you combine things like that, when you actually take engineering and allow it to turn and flourish into real art, that's when you get really great stuff out of it. You know, you have
totally.
like you have a deeper understanding than a standard musician or a standard engineer would have. Like, for example, there's this brand out there called Off-White. Virgil Abloh is their founder. Virgil Abloh is actually an architect, but he became a fashion designer. And
Makes sense.
and it,
I mean, form follows function, right?
yeah, and their clothing is very, very popular, incredibly popular, also expensive. And but Virgil has gone on to become the creative director of Louis Vuitton.
Okay, very cool.
Very high prestige in that role, for sure. Yeah, but anyway, I digress. So, when did you graduate from SFU?
So I finished my degree last year.
Okay, so 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And from that, did you have any particular sort of like plans where you wanted to go with that? Did you eventually want to like get into was dot drawing like a thing that you had planned for?
Not even a little bit.
Really?
When I graduated, my intention was to curate, right? So work in art galleries, work my way up through that system, and eventually I had a plan to open up my own art gallery with studios attached where I could help out emerging artists. My main focus was kind of on the young artists that don't get a whole lot of representation. How do you get them set up in a space where then they can flourish? And kind of nothing really came of that for the first while. It just ended up being one of those things where it's a competitive field and there's not a whole lot of jobs in it. So I found other work and then used art as kind of a means to continue being creative, and and it just kind of evolved into what it is now. And
what did you say you learned about art? What would you say is like one of the most like critical things that you learned about art after you finish your graduation versus before your graduation?
I would say before my graduation, one of the things I quote unquote knew about art was that it was all about the idea, right?
Yeah.
Without the concept, art is nothing. And that holds true to a degree. But after my degree and kind of experiencing art in the real world and creating art, it's definitely not just about the idea. You have to have the technicality and the skill to actually create something that is beautiful, objectively, to some degree, or at least aesthetic. Like, art that is just about the idea works fine if you're really playing with the avant-garde. But as soon as you're diving into, oh, hey, maybe someone might want to buy this, or maybe someone might want to have this tattooed on them, or something like that, you can't make it just about the idea, because then you're stuck in that loop of, well, this gigantic black circle, it means so much, therefore it's good art, because that doesn't necessarily hold true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different schools of thought in the art world that I didn't learn about in school. In particular, just commercial art.
Right.
It's one of those things that when you're studying art, you kind of look down upon as if it's beneath all art. And, real art, wouldn't sell. And that to me is it's pretty ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Because you look at sort of the most successful artists, especially in Kelowna, like you're looking at like John Revel, Alex Fong, like pretty amazing painters, and they're painting stuff for the masses. They're painting stuff to sell, and their artwork is fantastic. You look at some of the newer ones in Kelowna, like Jolene Mackey. Her artwork is spectacular, but it is intended to be sold. It's, to a degree, intended to be a very commercial thing, but I would say it's a lot better than some of the art that I studied in school. That's for sure. Wow.
Well, I mean, that's a really insightful thing to know. The thing is, being able to be more aware, to be able to accept like commercial art, not on just like visual art, but just like music and all that, being able to recognize that those are all viable forms of art is a hugely important thing, which I think a lot of people that really don't have that insight develop into snobby type people you never want to be around.
Yeah, the elitism really kind of grows, and it's challenging, right?
Yeah.
Because that kind of work does not sell well to the masses. I mean, even now, I go into a contemporary art gallery. I can understand some things, right? But I'm never going to be able to understand fully what's going on because I haven't been part of that world for so long. And it's only
Right.
been about a year, and already I'm like, I don't know what the hell these guys are doing. You know? So it's pretty interesting, and I'm sure that it rings true for all kind of forms of art.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the kind of dances or music that sells versus the kind that, you know, the elitists enjoy watching or listening to, and there's a big difference between them.
Yeah, because I mean, I like lots of different kinds of music. And when I listen, I like, you know, lots of like really heavy music. I like fast music. I also like really mellow music, really soft, really sparse music sometimes.
Yeah.
But when I listen to like some good pop songs though, like when I listen to Jealous by Nick Jonas, I'm just like, this is just like a pleasure that I can't find in like in it's a particular kind of pleasure that I can't find elsewhere. It's just like eating like a McDonald's burger, but you
Right.
don't hate yourself afterwards. That's just sort of how I feel, you know? So there's like being able to like just enjoy it, even though like, you know, Andy Warhol's painting, like the Campbell soup, for example.
Yeah.
Even though it's like one of the most like well-known and like ubiquitous pieces of art out there, you can still appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's like mainstream as shit. So
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of Andy Warhol as a whole with pop art. It
Yeah.
was really, how can I be as mainstream as possible?
Yeah.
Which he did very, very well.
clearly, think about his reputation.
Right?
Yeah, no. So you have to sort of like become a part of everybody if you want to actually be accepted. You know, like something that I grew up personally aware of is that for you to make music that actually sells, you kind of have to like make it appealable to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah. Well, the lowest common denominator is the majority of the population, right?
Yeah.
You know, so you gotta find that large demographic and you gotta focus on them, while still staying true to your art.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you kind of let go of your own artistic desires, like, then you're losing out in more ways than one.
True, very true. And it's an important thing to realize. And it's a really hard balancing act to be able to stay true to yourself and appeal to all those people, because those people will literally look at you as just like some other artist, you know,
Right.
like, you know, the first time that you hear a song that you like, you're like, okay, yeah, this song's cool. Yeah, this song's great. And then, you know, if they're good enough, then you'll start to be like, oh, I want to see what else they have.
Yeah.
Then you start to, and if they're good enough after that, then you'll start looking at their interviews, then you start following their Instagram pages and all the social media, and you'll realize, wow, I actually really developed a connection out of nowhere, you know? And so it's just like, it's like a very tough balancing act, because if you're not yourself enough, then people will say you're just boring. You're just like another faceless, just industry pawn, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a very tricky, fickle thing about this whole art scene that you're in, that we're in, that we're all in.
It's an interesting world to be navigating, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's a really interesting way to like juggle your mental health and psyche as well.
Yeah.
You know, people lose themselves a lot in that.
Oh,
place.
easily.
So, yeah, lots of high pressure. But anyway, getting out of that. So, you finished school. You're doing your dot drawings now, and you're looking into prints. Any sort of like what are the logistics you're finding when it comes to like getting those prints done and like getting them made in terms of like time frame? Do you have anything in mind when you want them to be out by?
I intend to have them ready and out as soon as possible.
Yeah.
At the very latest, it'll be end of the summer.
End of the summer, latest. Wow, cool.
Because at this point, it's really just about picking, 5 to 10 that I'm like, these are really solid. I'm just going to get them done. It's more about kicking myself in the pants than anything else.
Yeah. Just like get yourself moving.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you're doing all this stuff and you're like, how do I find time to do this extra little thing that I know I need to do? And the key to it is you make time, right? You spend one day doing 3 drawings so that the next day you can spend figuring out which prints you're going to make.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And where would they be able to find your work that you have and all your potential releases for your art?
I'm not sure about the releases yet. Like once the prints are finalized, and I'll be taking them around to local stores and kind of seeing who would like to sell them. Whereas any print that I have, or even ones that I don't have, I'd be happy to make for anyone if they just contact me through my Instagram. If they want a print, I'll make it for them.
And what's your Instagram?
That's graham.s.white. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one.
And do you have a website or anything?
No, that's another thing I got to get working on.
Right.
Websites, business cards, all the actual business sides of this kind of thing is definitely what I'm working on. But at the moment, the Instagram is kind of the main place to find me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's awesome, Graham. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Hey,
I
no
really
worries.
appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. This was For the Culture with Graham. And thank you so much for listening. Make sure you drop a follow on our SoundCloud, on our Instagram page, and you'll eventually see us on Spotify there as well, but not yet. You know, the business side of things can be a pain in the ass. So anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a good rest of your day.